Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and everyone, I hope that you're doing just fine. Actually, even better than just fine. I hope that you're doing really, really well. Everyone, welcome onto the program today, where we will be doing computer and technology news for the duration. Just you, me, and the news. We have tons of great stories that we're going to talk about here, and it's always a fun segment to try to catch back up. Definitely like it coming off of a weekend. We get to, even though not a lot of stories come from the past couple of days, hey, we try to keep everything as relevant as possible, but sometimes, you just need to catch up. So everyone, welcome into the Computer America Show. First things first, computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything about the show, including past shows, future shows, links, articles, videos, anything like that you'll find at computeramerica.com. And on top of that, you can find even more, including the video, articles that we write, and more. So everyone check out computeramerica.com if you have any questions about anything. On top of that, thank you so much for tuning in once again. If you're listening to us on IRN, thank you so much. If you are listening to us on, of course, the video portion or the podcast, thank you. Everyone, hey, welcome to the show. Let's go ahead and get started with the news. So everyone, computer and technology news brought to you by Computer America. All right, everyone. So let's go ahead and start with, and we have a bunch of different ones. Let's go ahead and start with this one. And this has to be in response to, of course, none other than Libra, which is a cryptocurrency that was proposed by, Facebook. And you can really see where uncharted territory this gets into when some of these mega companies and, really these mega companies around tech are getting into new technology that's even more, advanced than they already are. Because we all know that Facebook is massive when it comes to everything that they do with social media, with advertising, selling data, collecting data, that kind of thing. That's already been getting them into a lot of trouble with, just a day or two ago. We didn't cover it on the program, but they were levied, I think about 2 days ago or 1 day ago, they were given a $5 billion fine by the FCC for mishandling of personal data, which honestly I think is ridiculous. One, because it's probably not really going to affect them, and two, because, they didn't really mishandle it. It's just that people were using it as intended, and the unintended consequences of that, we didn't really like. But hey, that's really the running expectation of these companies, is that they do things, and even when things work as they feel it's intended, maybe after the fact we look back and say, whoa, can't believe we let them do that. Enter this article. This is from Reuters, and you can see it here on the video portion if you're watching that. But U.S. proposes barring big tech companies from offering financial services and digital currencies, which kind of makes you scratch your head because some big tech companies, and I mean big, Elon Musk made his first $1 billion with PayPal, and PayPal is a tech company that is exclusively financial services. So let's go ahead and get in this article and see what they mean. But a proposal to prevent big technology companies from functioning as financial institutions or issuing digital currencies has been circulated for discussion by the Democratic majority that leads the House Financial Services Committee, according to a copy of the draft legislation as seen by Reuters. And again, this comes to us from Reuters. And saying in a sign of widening scrutiny after Facebook's proposed Libra digital coin aroused widespread objection, the bill proposed a fine of $1 million per day for violation of such rules. So it's not even that they can't do it, it's just that as long as they make more than $1 million a day, then it's perfectly fine. They said that such a sweeping proposal would likely spark opposition from Republican members of the House who are keen on innovation and would likely struggle to gather enough votes to pass the lower chamber. Even if it were able to pass the full House, it would still have to pass the Senate, which is obviously not very likely if you know anything about politics. We don't really cover that here, but suffice to say, not a lot of legislation, or at least controversial legislation, is getting pushed through nowadays. Nevertheless, the draft proposal sends a strong message to big tech firms eyeing the financial services space, saying that the legislation, which is, quote, Keep Big Tech Out of Finance Act, which does not abbreviate to anything, unfortunately, just, don't let big tech get into the financial space, describes a large technology firm as a company mainly offering an online platform service with at least $25 billion in annual revenue. Which, there are a number of companies, but obviously that pretty much excludes it to the Facebooks, the Googles, the Apples of the world. There you go. Now, they said that, quote, a large platform utility may not establish, maintain, or operate a digital asset that is intended to be widely used as a medium of exchange, unit of account, store of value, or any other similar function as defined by the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System. So essentially, they say there, hey, you're not allowed to act as a bank or operate any kind of currency or even operate anything that acts as currency. Which I would argue, doesn't that include credit? Because you can have Facebook credit that can be applied to any number of things that you can buy through Facebook services. But I digress. Facebook would qualify under such an entity, and of course, they want to launch their cryptocurrency in 2020. Facebook and 28 partners, including MasterCard, PayPal Holdings, and Uber Technologies, would form the Libra Association, govern the new coin. No banks are currently part of the group. There you go. If you're wondering what the Libra currency was. Now, last week, U.S. President Donald Trump criticized Libra and other cryptocurrencies and demanded that the companies seek a banking charter and make themselves subject to U.S. and global regulations if they want to, quote, become a bank. And they mentioned that his comments after the Federal Reserve chairman told lawmakers that Facebook's plan to build a digital currency could not move forward unless it addressed concerns over privacy, money laundering, consumer protection, and financial stability. Which I think to a lot of people who heard about Facebook's potential cryptocurrency, they had it like you can come at Facebook from both angles. One, from a privacy angle, saying that, hey, Facebook already gathers so much data, and they've said that they wouldn't take any kind of payment history or anything like that, anything from Libra and attach that to people's profiles. That's what they've said. We've seen that not to be the case with other things they said that they wouldn't do. So the privacy standpoint, they don't have the best track record. And then on top of that, if you want to come at it from the other angle of, well, should you allow a tech company that big, which, we have rarely seen a company that can bring together almost 3 billion monthly users. Imagine that one system having the ability to then be the exclusive provider of commerce, where they are the bank, they have your money, and if you want to do any kind of transaction, you have to do it through Facebook. You can see where, there's not a single Federal Reserve in the world, for the U.S., let alone any other country's, banking system that has access to that many users. Maybe you could say the U.S. dollar, but hey, the banks are heavily regulated against, like they said, money laundering, consumer protection, financial stability, all of which Facebook as a tech company would be able to completely shirk. So, yeah, this seems really, I can't even say really poorly thought out, because I bet Facebook and their 28 partners have definitely thought a lot of this through. It's more of a question of, would it go well for everyone? And I don't know. Okay, so there's that one. And actually, if we'd like to take this a step further and go to social media, here's an article out from CBC, and it actually touches a lot about, the dangers of social media in general. So, let's see. There we go. So this has to do with, CBC, and this is by Kate McKenna, saying that social media, that's right, the thing that all of us use in one form or another, social media, but not video games, linked to depression in teens, according to a Montreal study. So you're wondering what causes depression in teens, because obviously depression has been on the rise. Mental health has been a sorely needed focus in the past couple of decades, or at least the past decade or two. More and more people seem to be struggling with some of these very common and poorly understood mechanisms of depression and anxiety and so on and so forth. And hey, there's no doubt that social media has been on the rise. Video games have been on the rise. Technology in general has been on the rise. What is the exact what is the interconnectivity of depression and social media? Now, as I said before, CBC, and let's go ahead and get into this. I found this very interesting, saying that screen time and social media in particular is linked to an increase in depressive symptoms in teenagers, according to a new study from Montreal's Sainte Justine Hospital. There you go. Who knew that screen time was linked to depressive symptoms? Not good, because I know that a lot of our listeners out there, they definitely are on computers and their phones and whatnot for their work. We have a lot of people who are involved in IT and things like that. But hey, if you're listening to Compute America, that means you derive even a little bit of your personal pleasure from technology, which means that you are spending even more time on your devices, which could lead to an increase in depressive behavior, which we don't want you to be depressed. We want you guys to be happy. So let's figure this out. The research team, led by Patricia Conrad, investigated the relationship between depression and exposure to different forms of screen time in adolescents over a 4-year period. And of course, this is going to focus on teens, but that does not mean that this study is useless to anyone outside of that age group. Just simply it focused on the age group. Now, they said, quote, "What we found over and over was the effects of social media were much larger than any other effect from other types of digital screen time." And that was, again, a professor of psychiatry at the University of Montreal. So the researchers studied the behavior of 3,800 young people from 2012 until 2018. Which, when you really think about it, Social media, let's just say that it didn't get popular until, let's say, MySpace, and that was in, 2005 or 6? And then Facebook didn't get popular until about 2009 or 10 or something like that. I'm sure my numbers are off. And this one has been following it from 2012 to 2018. This may be one of the most in-depth studies of what happens to young people on social media, because it just hasn't been around much longer than this study's been going on for. They recruited adolescents from 31 Montreal schools and followed their behavior from grade 7 until grade 11. They mentioned that the teenagers self-reported the number of hours per week. So I'm sure that you could, kind of pull from that, hey, if they're anything like me, they're probably underreporting. But yeah, they self-reported how many hours a week they consume social media and video games and television. And they mentioned that the team found an increase in depressive symptoms when the adolescents were consuming social media and television. Makes sense. So here, one of the key points that you can see here is social media leads to low self-esteem. Something that we've known for quite a while. The study found that all of the forms of screen time consuming social media found of all the forms of screen time consuming social media can be the most harmful. They mentioned that they found an increase in symptoms that are linked to being active on platforms such as Instagram, where teens are more likely to compare their lives to the glitzy images on their feeds. Quote, it exposes young people to images that promote upward social comparison and makes them feel bad about themselves, end quote. Another statement, these sort of echo chambers, these reinforcement spirals, also continually expose them to things that promote or reinforce their depression, and that's why it's particularly toxic for depression. Saying that they also tested to see if additional screen time was taken away from other activities that might decrease depressive symptoms such as exercise, but found that was not the case. Essentially, the teens were getting this screen time, this social media time, and it wasn't pulling from other things that would cause depression by not doing them, like they mentioned exercise, doing your homework, keeping up on your grades, things like that. No, social media was its own thing, and it was by itself causing depression. So just to kind of pile on here, we had a whole segment. You can still find the show in the archives. We especially named it Social Media and You, I think. You can find it wherever podcasts are heard and things like that if you'd like to go back and listen to it. Should you go on social media? Should you let your kids go on social media? It was very interesting to do that entire segment, to read up on the good, the bad, and all that kind of stuff. This obviously was not out when we did that segment, but we pretty much touched on the same thing, in that you can't help but compare yourself to whatever it is you see. And before social media, it was your immediate friends, your family, people who were generally going to be supportive of you, unless they were really toxic people, which has been known to happen. Most people want what is best for you. They want you to thrive. They want you to do well. They want you to, accomplish everything that you could possibly accomplish. But on social media, there's not that drive. It's a very competitive mindset out there when you are on a social media platform that has 1 billion users, and the most powerful form of the most powerful form of influence or reward that you can get from social media are likes and shares and that kind of thing. And when you see something that gets 50,000 shares, tons of likes, it goes viral, and your posts don't go anywhere, and you don't get that positive reinforcement, and then you get to see other people who are getting completely showered in that positive reinforcement. It really takes a toll on you mentally. And that's why, like I said, before it was just your immediate friends and family. Now you're against 1 billion different people, and like it or not, you're going to compare yourself. And you're never going to be thin enough. You're never going to have the best car. You're never going to make enough money. You're never going to do any of these things that are going to put you on the same level as the people who get the most attention. So therefore, you take it personally, and it's not a good thing. Which the study has further, found. And by the way, they've, and they also mentioned that, this is again happening in teens. So at an age where you're most vulnerable, you're still looking for your identity, you're still looking for, self-acceptance, and there's not really a lot to be found out there. So there you go. The article continues, no link between video games and depression. The most surprising finding for the team was that time spent playing video games was not contributing to depressive symptoms. They mentioned that the study suggests that the average gamer is not socially isolated, with more than 70% of gamers playing with other people either online or in person. Saying that video games makes one more happy, it's a good pastime. Although, of course, there are always extremes, and you could take it to the extreme, and it could be very unhealthy if you choose to do that. But at the same time, hey, it's not bad. It's not as bad. Let's put it that way. So Bauer said that he was inspired to dig into examining the effects of screen time in adolescence because something that's very common among youth, but not something that's widely studied. It would almost compare to smoking in the 1970s, where the negative effects are still relatively unknown, which, that's pretty much where we're at right now. So though depression can be debilitating at any age, when it is found in adolescence, it is also linked to substance abuse, lower self-esteem, and poor interpersonal skills, which is so weird. Actually not weird. Depression, obviously, yes, it can cause all those kinds of things. Now, he said on average, teens are spending 6 to 7 hours in front of a digital screen per day, which, yeah, I could totally see that. With a screen that is simply in your hand all day long, 6 to 7 hours a day, I completely believe it. And he mentioned that what we found is quite worrisome and needs further investigation, and they hope that their research will be used by pediatricians and other healthcare providers to help more effectively treat teens for depression. Now, for the unsolicited medical advice of Computer America, where we cannot tell you what to do, how to do it, when to do it, or how to raise your kids, social media should definitely be restricted. It's not a good thing to simply stare at others, compare yourself to others, look at other people's lives, focus completely outward and not focus inward. It's not healthy for you. So again, we highly recommend you go check out our past show on social media, but at the same time, just to distill it, you're never going to be the best out there, and social media will prove that to you. But it's okay not to be the best, because you can just be good enough for you, your friends, your family, your immediate your coworkers, your classmates. Hey, no one said that you had to be the best. And trust me, in a lot of ways, even people who you see who are successful, they are simply making it look that way. They are not as successful as you think they are, and for you to take that personally, not going to be good. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and try to perk up the show just a little bit, because that was a bit of a downer, but a very important downer. How about we talk about, something that actually comes up surprisingly often. I know that Craig Crossman, he was a big fan of the Codebreaker, Alan Turing. Let's see, there's a movie that he really liked, which, by the way, very historically, factually inaccurate. Just throwing that out there. It was about Alan Turing and breaking the German code so that they could identify where U-boats were, and it was a huge advantage in in World War II. But sorry about that. But yeah, World War II codebreaker Alan Turing, and how we are finally honoring him, and by we I mean England. They mentioned that World War II codebreaker Alan Turing has been revealed as the face. words are hard, as the face of the new 50 euro banknote, which you can see right here if you're watching the video portion. Pretty darn cool. Saying that the mathematician, who is widely considered to be the father of computer science and artificial intelligence, was selected from a short list of 12 options. Bank of England Governor Mark Carney made the announcement on the Science and Industry Museum in Manchester. And he mentioned that Mr. Carney also revealed imagery depicting Dr. Turing and his work that would be used for the reversal of the note. A banknote is expected to enter circulation by the end of 2021, saying that Alan Turing was an outstanding mathematician whose work had an enormous impact on how we live today. As the father of computer science and artificial intelligence, as well as war hero, Alan Turing's contribution were far-ranging and path-breaking. And trust me, there's lots of great literature out there if you'd like to go check out Alan Turing. He was not treated very well in his lifetime. He was, if you didn't know, he was chemically castrated by his government. He was chemically castrated. He was, developed, and this was supposed to be the upbeat part. He developed depression because of it, and ultimately, I believe he took his own life because of it. But if nothing else, this is a turning point in at least his legacy. Not turning point. His legacy's been pretty good lately. I mean, heck, you got a whole movie made about him. But it continues to proliferate. So, Alan Turing, the new face of the 50 pound note, not euro, the 50 pound note. There you go. So it will enter circulation by the end of 2021. And there you go. So Alan Turing, good job. Let's go ahead and talk about, let's see, we did that one. All right. So kind of like those stories that you hear about with, baseball cards or what have you. I believe just recently we had the anniversary of the 50th anniversary of the moon landing, which perfect, great, love it. Now check out this article from the New York Times. How moon landing tapes found in a $218 batch could fetch more than $1 million. Yeah, they're going up for auction this Saturday. And like I said, much like baseball cards, you never know what you have until you watch it. 3 reels of videotape will be auctioned at Sotheby's on Saturday. Other recordings could have laid claim to being earlier or better, but those tapes were lost. Now, this is by Ben Kenningsberg, and saying that the Apollo 11 moonwalk wasn't the first broadcast sent from space, but in geographic reach, it was the most astonishing. Saying that the microwave links, satellites, and landlines carried images of Neil Armstrong's step around the globe from Australia and the United States to Japan and Europe, even parts of the Eastern Bloc, in virtually real time. This was live TV from more than 200,000 miles away using the technology of 1969. So although the experience of watching the event looms large in memory for those who saw it, for NASA historians and other experts, the preservation of the broadcast has provided its own drama. Saying that on Saturday, the moon landing's 50th anniversary, 3 reels of the videotape will be auctioned at Sotheby's, marketed as, quote, the only surviving first-generation recording of the historic moonwalk, and, quote, the earliest, sharpest, and most accurate surviving video images of man's first steps on the moon. Who knew that, who knew that we didn't have that? And so according to Sotheby's, the NASA intern named Gary George bought the recordings as part of a collection of 1,150 reels at a government surplus auction in 1976. He paid $217 for 1,150 reels. The bidding on Saturday started at $700,000, and Sotheby's estimated that they will sell for over $1 million. Wow. Now, how these 3 humble reels came to be seen as a precious historical artifact speaks to the elaborate techniques used to bring the moon landing to the public. And let's see. Yeah. So bringing the moon landing to the public, the story also involves government missteps, and that destroyed other recordings that could have rivaled Mr. George's for the claim of being the first. So yeah, just to skip ahead, and we'll move on to another article when we come back from the break. But by the time the images reached live TV rooms, it was really ghosty. It was really standard, substandard quality compared to the image that the camera actually recorded. The slow scan tapes were considered. Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, the slow scan tapes were considered the first and clearest recordings of the moon landing, and yeah, but those tapes were likely lost forever, and now we are just left with this close second hand. Everyone, we'll be right back. More computer and technology news right after this. Everyone, stay tuned.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. That's 800-215-4461.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 32 minutes past the hour as we continue on here. And everyone, hey, how you doing? Hopefully you're doing well, and you are ready to get back to it. So everyone, if you miss a part of the show today, you can, of course, we hope that you catch us live on IRN. But at the same time, if you feel like it, wherever podcasts are heard, simply search Computer America, and you can find today's show and all other shows right up there whenever you'd like. But we continue on. We're doing computer and technology news. And let's go ahead and talk about, some of these other stories that we have here. And hey, it's pretty crazy what we have. So some of these stories, let's see. I was just looking for one thing real quick, and okay. Just because we covered the auction of the moon landing videotapes, let's go ahead and do another auction real quick, just because, hey, it's kind of fits. So here we go. This is a story from Ars Technica, Kyle Orland, saying that Atari 2600. It's crazy what old tech can bring in. And Atari 2600 Rarity Extraterrestrials goes on sale for $90,000. There you go. So I've never even heard of this, but extremely limited 1984 release was practically unheard of until 2011. And you can see an image of it here. It's, still plays. So they said that got $90,000 burning a hole in your pocket. If so, you seemingly have a rare opportunity to purchase one of the rarest Atari 2600 games in existence. That's right. Extraterrestrials, not to be confused with the notorious movie licensed Atari 2600 flop E.T., was an actual Atari 2600 game sold near the tail end of the 2600's commercial existence in early 1984. But the cartridge was almost completely unknown, even among the Atari collecting community, until October of 2011. That's when a copy turned up as a contribution to Canada's Personal Computer Museum in Brantford, Ontario. And with a bit of research, curators at the museum were able to determine that the game's maker, Skill Screen Games, was centered around the Banting family of Burlington, Ontario, making this the only Canadian-produced Atari 2600 game to boot. The Bantings, hoping to cash in on the Atari craze and the continuing hype around the E.T. movie, hired a programmer and named Herman Quast to write a simple 2-player maze game for the Atari 2600, with plans to sell the game through distributors for the 1983 holiday release. After a delay pushed the release to early 1984, the great video game crash of 1983 had pretty much eliminated any chance of an unknown and, as I said, a pretty derivative game finding interest from distributors. But they said, and by the way, they actually have a video here if you would like to watch it on the video portion. But they said that after a delay, as mentioned, but the banks decided to see their investment through, producing roughly 100 cartridges and selling them door to door in the area, according to the creators. Which, you can see here. Fast forward to 2011, when this unknown and unheralded game found its way to a museum. After tracking down the curators and backing up the ROM for archival and distribution, curators produced a limited edition run of 100, quote, special edition carts for the collector's market. The museum has since obtained 2 more of the game's original run of cartridges and discovered a 4th that currently belongs to the developer, Herman Quast. Crazy that he kept it for so long. So he said that, but this is seemingly the first time that a copy of the little-known game has been up for private sale. The seller, who has a perfect feedback rating for a couple of years on eBay, says that they purchased the game from a seller who found the game in the Brantford area close to the site of the production. He said that, quote, I paid a premium price for it myself, and it is very difficult for me to make this choice, but I thought it would open the opportunity to the world to get their hands on a truly unique piece of gaming history. So, with no previous sales for Extraterrestrial on record, it's hard to say whether it's actually worth $90,000. Retro Gaming Expert estimates the worth at about $7,000 to $15,000 back in October 2018, with the valuation put somewhere below Air Raid, another oddly shaped, incredibly rare Atari cartridge that sold for over $33,000 in 2012. Yeah, I don't see this. $90,000 is a lot. If the seller out there is listening to this, $90,000 is probably asking for too much. Would you take $10,000 for it? I guess. Now, by the way, I'm not offering to buy it. I have no sentimental value for Atari games. So there you go. Even at $90,000, they said that the asking price below the $100,000 garnered for a pristine sticker sealed test market copy of Super Mario Brothers earlier this year. But that was a one-of-a-kind find that represented one of the most well-regarded and culturally significant games of all time, which it certainly was. And while Extraterrestrial has an interesting history, it's not a game that brings up nostalgic memories or anything more than a historic curiosity for pretty much anyone. I agree. So for what it's worth, it seems like this eBay listing has already been ended and relisted, seemingly due to fraudulent buyer. So serious bidders interested in spending $90,000 on a single Atari cartridge, please apply. Yeah, there you go. And yeah, it looks like as of the time of this recording, it's still up. It's you can definitely still go and get it. I know you were wondering, wow, Ben, can I still go get it? There you go. So, we're going to go ahead and just kind of leave that one there. But, hey, speaking of video games, And unfortunately, it hurts me to say this. Speaking of video games and things probably better left in the past, let's talk about GameStop here for a minute. So, GameStop hopes renovations will keep its retail stores alive, saying that it's betting that more playable games, esports, and retro stores will help. And this is by John Fingus, Foreign Gadget. But I think a lot of the younger generation and even the not so younger generation, we remember when you had to go and buy your video games in a physical location. You had to line up at GameStop if you wanted to play World of Warcraft. You had to line up at midnight for the midnight releases. If you wanted to play Halo, you had to get in line. If you wanted Call of Duty, if you wanted Gears of War, hey, GameStop was the place to be. GameStop, EB Games. I'm sure that there are others, places like Toys R Us. I'm sure had some. But the point is, with the advent of digital distribution, which took a couple of years, but was very clearly the superior option, what did GameStop really have to offer? For a while there, they were offering in-game exclusives, but even those became rare and fewer in between, thanks to the advent of downloadable content and in-game transactions and real money transactions within video games. Hey, almost all of the appeal of GameStop kind of went away. So let's go ahead and talk about this and their next plan of action, because obviously they don't. The retail giant doesn't just want to close all of its shops. So let's see if they can really bring this thing back from the dead. GameStop thinks that as a way to keep its stores relevant as downloads take hold, revamp the stores themselves, saying that the chain has unveiled a team up with designers at RGA on a pilot program to renovate stores and give them a place in the video game culture. The concept stores will have layouts and purpose meant to appeal more directly to gamers. You'll have new ways to try games before buying them. Shops that cater solely to retro games and hardware, and even esports competitions with homegrown leagues. Okay, so a lot of that, people who play video games, they're definitely suckers for, things that share their interests. So, if you saw a giant cardboard cutout of Master Chief, heck, you'd be all over it. If you were surrounded by your favorite paraphernalia, hey, you'd be all about it. But that last one, I'm actually pretty interested. And the retro games market is going to get bigger. The older people get, the more retro becomes a thing. Trust me, if you've turned on the radio station, or any radio station, and you've heard, playing yesterday's hits and today's favorites, or the best of the 70s, the best of the 80s, hey, new retro is being made every single day. So I get that. That could also be an attraction as well. But check this one out. Esports competitions. That one's actually interesting because a lot of esports, there's, of course, the big national stage where you have the likes of your Blizzards and your Riot Games and your the makers of Call of Duty and things like that. You have the upper echelon of esports. But when it comes to more community focus, just like, let's say you tried to get into playing chess, just to pick a hobby out there, you would play at your local school. Your school would then take you to the district. The district would then take you to regionals. Regionals would take you to state, or swap those around. The point is, there's kind of a ladder system that eventually gets you up to national and eventually the world stage. It's like that for any other sport. If you were to play baseball, if you were to play chess, swimming, anything. Esports doesn't really have that. Either you play online or you play really at the national stage. There's not a lot of community-driven esports. I think there's a place for that. I'm not sure if GameStop is going to be the place for that. They certainly have the retail space. They definitely could have the foot traffic. It's just, are you going to get people out of their homes to play video games and go to a different location to play the exact same game with people face to face? That's a tough sell. So the two companies didn't say when they expected these pilot stores to be ready. They did, however, plan to try locations in a select market. So essentially not every GameStop, but just for now, just a few GameStops. It's far from certain that this will help. GameStop has tried shaking up its retail formula before without much success, such as selling mobile devices and including more gaming paraphernalia. And while these efforts might convince more people to visit the stores, they won't necessarily lead to sales. Retro games still depend on physical purchases, but esports competitions aren't necessarily going to spend money at GameStop just because they played a tournament in store. Which, don't get me wrong, you could maybe charge, $5 at the door, something like that. But overall, they're right. It's not going to lead to increased sales just because you host tournaments there. Still, this isn't an acknowledgement that GameStop has to do something beyond cutting costs if it's going to keep its retail operations afloat. Assuming that they can survive in the first place, physical game sales are unlikely to bounce back, and console sales could slump until at least the next generation debuts in 2020. GameStop doesn't have much to lose by experimenting with new store formats, and if nothing else, the concepts could help the retailer shake up its reputation. So I'm kind of with them there. I don't think this is the silver bullet. Nothing about this is going to be, wow, they should have done this before. No, these are all rolls of the dice. Which, by the way, I think GameStop should actually really consider getting into board games, Dungeons and Dragons and things like that. Expanding the definition of a game, but beyond that, yeah, this is still iffy if this is going to work and how well it's going to work, even if it does work. So let's, there you go. GameStop, hope you make it, because honestly, I have a lot of good memories of going to GameStop and getting my games. So let's see if they can stay relevant. Now, there's that one. Speaking of video games, and this is also kind of related, let's talk about Kickstarter real quick. Many games, and actually many guests on the program have actually, done this before coming on the show or after coming on the show, or they've come on the show during their Kickstarter project. And, actually getting funds from Kickstarter, it's not as easy as it used to be, which is probably a good thing. Here we go. So this is from Engadget, and this is Christine Fisher. Kickstarter has fewer video game projects, and that's a good thing. That's the title. Video game projects raise less money than they did a few years ago, but more of their goals are being met. So video game projects may have found their stride in the crowdfunding world. And according to ICO partners, fewer games are being pitched on Kickstarter, but a greater percentage are reaching their goals. And the total amount raised by the gaming campaigns is up year over year. Not bad. So ICO's an annual Kickstarter report looks at data in 6-month increments. So according to the numbers, the total dollar pledged to video game Kickstarter peaked in the first 6 months of 2013 at $27.5 million. And in the first half of 2019, the total pledge capped out at about $10.2 million. So decidedly less, a lot less. In the first half of 2019, the total pledge, as I mentioned, $10 million. The number of products launched has gone down as well, from 1,179 new video game campaigns down to just 678, which is a much more reasonable number. And you can see the charts here, very, very informative. And while those are a significant drop, the number of fully funded projects has remained fairly consistent. In the second half of 2014, 233 projects reached their funding goal and 946 missed their mark. So of the peak of 11,000 video games, only about 25% actually met their goal. 20% actually met their goal. In the first half of this year, in 2019, about 193 met their goal, and they did in either half of 2018 or 2017, saying that only 485 missed their mark. So essentially, instead of 1/5 meeting their goal, now we're up to a third meeting their goal, which is pretty cool. And they mentioned campaigns have raised more than they have in any 6-month stretch since 2015. Very nice. And honestly, if you look at the chart here for who gets funded and not funded, where obviously the little orange line indicates who does get funded and the big blue lines is who doesn't. You can see here, as I said, the number who get approved, like the number who meet their actual campaign, who actually reach their goals of being on Kickstarter, everything from 100 all the way up to 230, all the way down to recently, it looks like since it reached its peak in 233 in 2014, it really hasn't been much lower than like 160 or 170, and it's been fluctuating between 170 and 200. It looks like, I don't know, just the audience for new video games kind of caps out. It's as much as you'd like to believe that there's always room for another great game, there's only so much attention, there's only so much there's only so much money that can go into developing completely unknown titles and have them be successful. Where you can see we kind of hit that peak. We hit that peak of just the number of video games that were being pitched, and now we are decreasing to the point where maybe only people who really feel like they have an innovative product, not just any video game, is going to get pitched out there anymore. Now you have to have something truly different to make it on Kickstarter, and they're starting to realize that. So they mentioned that there's no doubt that crowdfunding a video game is tough, and projects are often subject to delays and port cancellations. And as we've seen with products like the Ouya gaming console, a successful crowdfunding campaign and launch doesn't always guarantee long-term success. The Ouya, by the way, will live on in infamy. They said that there are plenty of challenges to navigate once a game is released. Of course, in some cases, projects meet their goals in a matter of hours, leading to high-profile collaborations. While plenty of video game campaigns have crashed and burned, more games are reaching their goals, and people are still spending their money to back them. And as I said before, it looks like the same number of people, or at least the same amount of support for video games, is out there. It's that's been the pretty consistent feature from 2012 all the way to 2019, as far back as Kickstarter has been really tracking this, or I should say that ICO has been tracking this. The amount of support is consistent. The amount of games has been peaking up and down. That's really the difference. How many people are trying to cash in on this? So there you have it. Yeah, if you'd like to check out the charts yourself, we're going to include this in the show notes. But there you go. Okay. How about we talk about this one real quick? So this caught my attention. This was a headline from Ars Technica, and it caught my attention because not often do you hear Office 365 declared illegal. Yeah. So they said that last week the German state of Hesse declared that its schools may not legally use Office 365 cloud products. Hesse is one of the 16 federal states of Germany with a population of about 6 million people, of about 83 million Germans. So, yeah, that's a lot of crowds. Now, although the press release specifically targets Office 365, it notes that competing Apple and Google cloud suites also do not satisfy German privacy regulations. So this isn't the first time that this isn't the first time part of Germany has publicly broken up with Microsoft Office. Some German cities, including Munich and Freiburg, famously ditched Microsoft Office applications in favor of Open Office in the early 2000s. I recall that. Those open source adoption programs have had a notorious rough ride, plagued with interoperability issues. Just because one town changes its Office applications doesn't mean its neighboring town's parent state or even its own citizens have. The municipalities have also been targeted heavily with lobbying from Microsoft itself, up to and including Steve Ballmer, who was then Microsoft CEO, interrupting a ski vacation to fly to Munich to try to cut a pro-Microsoft deal in person. However, And they go on to talk about the history of Microsoft and that kind of thing. They also mention things like data protection and freedom of information isn't just about saying that schools would prefer not to use Microsoft. He's stating that their use of Office 365 is outright illegal. There you go. They said in August 2017, they ruled that Office 365 could legally be used by schools so long as the backend for the school's accounts was stored in Microsoft's German-located cloud. A year later, Microsoft closed its German cloud data center, and schools migrated their accounts to a European cloud. Now, they said that because the cloud has moved from Germany to a European located server, that means that, well, hey, the European cloud may offer access to U.S. authorities and therefore is no longer in compliance with the Data Protection and Freedom of Information Act. So in addition to the physical geography of the cloud, the HPDI is unhappy about the telemetry in both Office 365 and Windows 10 itself. Who knew that Europe is actually taking a harder line stance against spying on citizens unduly? Who knew that they would take a harder line stance than the U.S.? And they said that this means that the schools and themselves cannot consent on behalf of the students, and neither can their parents, according to HPDI. It appears that they would rather not ditch Office outright, preferring to pressure Microsoft into compliance with German law. The Office lays out the conditions under which the school can continue to use Office 365. It requires that all possible access of third parties to user data be curtailed, which would mean opening a German data center, and also required that the contents of Windows 10 and Office 365 telemetry be revealed in full. Until then, they said that schools can use other tools such as on-premise licenses on local systems. There you have it. I really don't think that should be too much of a shocking, kind of feature that we know what kind of telemetry Microsoft is pulling from students and how they're using it. And knowing that any attempt to gather private information from these user accounts is actually, the proper permissions are in place before they actually do it. So there you have it. So we have time for just one more story, and trust me, it's really, really hard today to try to, dig through the best deals of Amazon Prime Day. Amazon Prime Day is just flooding all these kinds of things. Let's go ahead and talk about, lots of other ones here. Okay, how about we talk about, this is a pretty big acquisition, or at least a big move. And this is from The Verge, and we have someone moving from one company to another. Hopefully this means good things. Frank Azor, if you hadn't heard about that, is taking up a new challenge after 21 years at Alienware. Alienware co-founder leaves Dell to become AMD's chief gaming architect. Check that out. And if you're not really up to date on Alienware used to be, one of the two big gaming hardware companies alongside Voodoo PCs, where really, if you wanted the high end, the best, the most unique hardware out there, you went with Alienware or Voodoo. And Alienware was scooped up by Dell, and don't get me wrong, I think one of the reasons that Alienware made it and Voodoo PCs didn't was that Alienware had the backing of Dell. Dell is a massive corporation, and although you can complain about Dell's, handling of that kind of thing, of Dell's kind of exerting control over Alienware, Alienware continued to be very, very iconic when it came to gaming hardware. You knew when when something was an Alienware. It was very robust. It was very unique, and in a lot of cases, very futuristic. Well, check it out. They said that WCCF Tech caught wind of Acer's likely new destination, with AMD CEO Lisa Su has now effectively confirmed, saying he is becoming AMD's new chief gaming architect, and who is reporting to Sandeep Channakeshu. Sorry about that. He is becoming, and they said that he was recently appointed vice president in charge of the computing and graphics business. When originally reached for comment, he declined to elaborate on his departure and didn't wish to confirm or deny reports about his destination. But he's very well known. He's very iconic with his work, and I hope AMD makes the. I hope that his relationship with AMD is a very, very good one, because I think that despite what you think about Alienware and despite what you think about Dell and AMD and that kind of thing, there's a lot of expertise that he could share. So I'm looking forward to see what AMD, kind of has him working on. So everyone, music means that we're done. I want to thank you so much for tuning in, and I want to say thank you for checking out Computer America. If you'd like to hear more, computeramerica.com, and of course, check us out wherever podcasts are heard, Computer America. In the meantime, we'll be back tomorrow, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern. Have a great day. Thank you. Bye, everyone.